Two. Welcome to Marriage with Joy, which is the most open discussion on the internet about the positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant aspects of living in harmony with matrimony. Marriage with Joy unabashedly discusses the most interesting questions raised by listeners. Our informed and informative panel addresses issues with thought, wit, and aplomb. Voted best of the web 2 years running. Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking because you're always looking for and finding the good. We found good in abundance. What you've done is you consciously and consciously tuned into the greatest show on the entire internet. You realize what I'm saying? On the entire internet, millions and millions and millions of things called podcasts. This is the greatest show about marriage because it talks about marriage with joy. The essence of marriage is rooted in joy. And as you know, I am the king of acronyms. Joy stands for Journey of You. And the ability for marriage to be that union of two people with minds, hearts, and spirits united for growth is really one of the most beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal processes that exist in the world. And we are just so honored and humbled and happy that you've chosen to invest your most valuable time, your most valuable asset, which is your time, in being with us today. Now, I'm going to put this in context in terms of date because we don't usually do this, but this is the month of June, and we're in the last day or two of the month of June, 28th, in the year 2023. If you're counting according to one calendar, according to another calendar, we're in the year 58, 57, something, 81. And if you count according to the Muslim calendar, we're in the 34 something. I think it is, no, 1400 and something. And if you use the Thai calendar, we're in the year 2973. But whatever you're counting, whatever you're doing, and that was my way of saying, welcome, wonderful Lori, also. We have our full complement here. Whatever the date is for you, I want to make mention that this month of June is one of the most interesting, remarkable months in the entire calendar. And it is because of several reasons. Number one, it is the time of the solstice. If you're in the northern hemisphere, of course, it's the summer solstice. If you're in the southern hemisphere, then it basically, we'll call it the vernal equinox because it becomes the shortest day of the year, as the northern hemisphere has the longest day of the year. But wherever you are in the world, you are experiencing a change of season. And June is that time that just brings out an additional process in the human being that says there's something happening here. We don't know quite what it is, but we like this energy. Now, I will also say that for the past couple of years, the United States of America especially, and I'm choosing my words carefully. I rehearsed this before I said it, and I'm going to make some people groan and some people be upset. But the United States of America has been held hostage because of a word, and it's a word. It's a good word. The word is pride, and that people, a small group, actually, a very small group, very vocal activists have lobbied and pushed and to create something that is called Pride Month. Now, pride is a wonderful thing. Matter of fact, we have coming up in just a few days on July 4th, July should be Pride Month. To be proud of the United States of America, to be proud of what we've built here in the United States of America, to be proud of the opportunity that is given for people from anywhere in the world to come to the United States and to build lives that are productive and helpful and hopeful and are a beacon unto the world. Now, we're not going to dwell on this. See, by the way, that's called sneezing on the truth. You should all know. Okay, it's an old, I like superstition sometimes, but it's called sneezing on the truth. So July is Pride Month with Pride in the United States. I've had untold number of questions in the many hundreds in the past 30 days since we did our past show that are talking about two completely different things. And we might bring up both of the topics. I'm not sure we'll have time for both. But one of them, I'll give you the setup. One of the sets of questions, and there were about 130, 140 of them, has to do with the presumption. They said, you, Barry Shore, you're presuming that marriage with joy is built upon this foundation that we call growth. We've all agreed to that previously. That marriage is really about the ability to grow together. Obviously, if one grows and the other doesn't, then that becomes an imbalance. But that's just the nature of life. People grow at different rates. But the ability to grow in marriage is one of the reasons that people get married. Obviously, to procreate and things like that, but really about human growth. That's the driver. Now, the other situation is that I've got, again, 150 plus questions is, Barry Shore, can you please speak with the panel about what we believe? Again, out of 150 questions, probably 130 are like this. 20 was sort of neutral, but a similar idea. We feel besieged that there are elements in the United States today that are coming after our kids. That was the quotation marks. A lot of them use that. And unfortunately, I saw recently in several of these things called these particular parades where some very vocal, and again, I'm presuming and hoping it's a minority of a minority of a minority of activists in they call it the queer community. I don't want to use the term queer. In the homosexual community, et cetera, that have vocalized this idea that, yeah, what they say, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your kids. Again, I trust, oh yeah, if you haven't heard this or seen it, don't search for it. It's disturbing. But it is true. But it's, again, I trust and hope and pray that it's minority of minority. So if we have time, we'll talk about that. What we want to begin with, though, is this foundational understanding that this remarkably beautiful process that we call in English marriage. And again, in other languages, it has other meanings, and most of them have to do with sanctity, which is very nice. In other words, the idea of marriage, or as we say in Hebrew, of kedusha, or it has to do with a level of sanctity, of making sure that two people are joined, we used to say, in holy matrimony. The ability to recognize that there is a holiness in life and that people can be united together in holiness, and that unique separateness of the people together building a family does not exclude others except for certain things that are intimate relationships. But otherwise, the genius of a marriage group is to create abundance and a community. In other words, a married household, it doesn't stand isolated. It's part and parcel of a community of other households, and therefore building even greater, because that creates an exponential process. So I have had 150 plus minus questions relating to the idea that we believe, we have posited here on this program, that marriage is first and foremost a mechanism for two people to join together in physically, mentally, and spiritually, because they both recognize that they have either shared or espoused, excuse the pun, shared or espoused values, common values, that will enable them to grow. And I'm going to just leapfrog and tell you what about 50 people mention in their letters and emails, and that the idea of growth is interesting, is that it's funny to say it like this. Growth is not static. I'll tell you what I mean, how I interpret what people said to me. If you get married, let's say at the age of 25, just picking a number. Well, by the time you're 32, plus minus, we presume you're not thinking the same way as when you were 25. There's a bit of maturation that has happened in the intervening 7 years, let's say. And the same as you get to the age of 40 and then to 50. In other words, it's a process of growth that doesn't end. And that, I think, is the genius of marriage, and why Marriage with Joy is really what we call our podcast. So I'm going to ask our leadoff batter, that amazing being. I'm first going to introduce everybody again, because my name is Barry Shore. I'm called the Ambassador of Joy. Forget me. I'm not important. But who is important are our three amazing panelists. And they are up in the right-hand corner, or actually in the left-hand corner of the United States of America, in the Northwest, holding up the fort. It is our amazing, wonderful Dr. Diane Medved, and she is an author, a raconteur, a wonderful mother, a wife, a grandmother, a great friend, and she brings to bear such great insights, because she's written, I don't know, almost a dozen books on psychology, about marriage and divorce against it, and all kinds of other things about growth. And I just want to make mention also, in the lower right-hand corner, which is actually the lower right-hand corner of the United States of America, in Florida, just returned from a European vacation celebrating her 40th wedding anniversary, a little bit late, is wonderful, had the Ambassador of Happiness, Maura Sweeney. And in the left-hand corner, and it is the left coast, down in California, the site of all kinds of weirdness these days, and we might talk about that in upcoming shows, is our wonderful wife expert, Lori McDermott. So welcome, everybody. We're going to lead off with wonderful Diane. I'm going to try and formulate the question in the following. And here it is. What do you see as the process of growth in marriage with people, two married people, let's say over the course of, if you want to count them in decades, you want to count it in every 7 years, that can enable people to do that? Is it a prodding effect? Is it a natural process? These are the questions I'm getting asked. Is it a prodding effect? Is it a natural process? Or is it something that, how should we say it, can happen because one spouse is either vocalizing or is mentioning that they need to have something happen in marriage? You hear the question? Is it sort of organic, or is it more prodded? That's the question, I think.
First of all, this is a question all over the map, and I'm glad we
Yeah,
have
well, we get hundreds of questions when I'm trying to put them into small packages.
I'm trying to ask, how does growth happen between spouses?
And yeah, well, she's smart. That's why she's so smart, and she's a doctor. That's why she put it in the right way.
It's why you lead off.
I get to figure it out what he's asking. I think the answer is all of the above. I think people grow in very individualized ways, and that they need to be respected for the type and rate of growth in which they're engaged. You know, you said people won't be the same at 32 as they are at 25. That's true, but two 32-year-olds will be vastly different. And so you can't expect someone at age 32, just because he's lived that long and matured that much, to be a particular way. There are awfully immature 32-year-olds, and then there are incredibly mature and responsible 32-year-olds. Mm-hmm. So I think that to have an expectation, you know, the problems in marriage are caused by expectations that are unfulfilled. And when people expect the other person to be a certain way, to answer questions a certain way, to confront challenges in a certain way, they're bound at some time to be disappointed. And sometimes disappointment turns into resentment, turns into anger, turns into falling out of love. And so I think having expectations of how you or your partner are going to grow, and by the time I'm 50, I will have written 4 books, and I will travel to Europe and Asia, and I will see in Australia. It's like bucket list. No, a bucket list can be a burden as well as an inspiration.
Woo! Wait a minute. Have you ever said this before? Ever? I mean, this is great.
Probably not.
That was very good.
But I think that what we have to do is winnow out our expectations for A, ourselves, and B, our partner, and take away the second group. Don't have expectations for your partner. Try and be the person where your partner can feel the most comfortable to grow, can feel that person can make mistakes, that going one direction and finding that doesn't work is okay in marriage, because that it should be your safe haven. And to say, well, we've got to grow this way, or we've got to even grow together this way, you're going to be bound for disappointment, because you are who you are, and there's a whole panoply of factors impacting you as an individual. The same for your partner. And what you can do is combine the two and try and use that as a springboard to find the best direction to go as a couple. But it could also be that you have differing directions to sub-directions to go as a couple or as individuals. That's all okay. So I think the premise of the question is possibly mistaken, in that you can't say someone else needs to grow a certain way. You have to accept that person and love that person and realize all the faults and the good sides that that person brings to you, and be grateful for those. And if you can say, okay, now we're a partnership, we're two different people, and the combination of two very different people equals something much better than either of us could have been individually. And you see this partnership is unique, and as you said, Barry, sanctified, something separate and important from the rest of the world that will help you, A, fend off the negative influences that are bound to be all around you, and return to your marriage as the source of comfort and caring that empowers you to then go out and accomplish the things that you really want. And we say in Judaism, your spouse is your Ezer Kenegdo. That is a helpmate opposite you, someone who can look at you from outside yourself and see all the things that you're doing right, that you maybe could do better, that maybe should have been done a different way. That person is in a unique position because that person is your soulmate and your teammate. And so your helpmate opposite you. And I think when it comes to growth, if you can be that helpmate opposite your spouse, then you can facilitate whatever direction turns out, and it keeps changing as you get older, as you're married longer, as things happen to you. It's always changing. You will keep revising your goals. You'll keep revising what constitutes success and what constitutes failure. And you may see that a lot of things that you considered failure really aren't, that they were part of the growth and expansion process for each of you and for you as a couple. So
there are a number of points I wrote down here. I just want to unpack a little bit before we ask Maura to sing a song of her trip and such. I like this very much, this expectations unfulfilled, because everybody has expectations from the other one. Oftentimes, it's a little more difficult, not often, almost always a little more difficult to realize, well, wait a minute, what can I make sure that I do so that my spouse doesn't think that I'm not fulfilling expectations? You know, what's expected of me? Unless you speak it out, nobody goes with, sometimes you have a shopping list to go shopping, but nobody has a piece of, well, here's my expectation list for you. Well, I didn't know I had one. And if you don't speak about it or articulate it in some way, then they could be unfulfilled, and that can lead to frustration, as you mentioned. And I really like this point, and I'm going to emphasize it because again, thank God we have so many people that listen and tune in and listen again. The ability to make mistakes, that's what you said, I find personally is one of the most beautiful aspects of being married. I won't use the F word, but you can, mess up. And for me, because I've been married 45 years, I can know that my wife will have a little bit of a look on her face. Well, yeah, okay, fine. But it's not as if the world has ended. I can make a mistake. That's very nice. You can't get that feeling anywhere in the world. Because you make a mistake at business, in quotation marks. Well, people point fingers and money, and you never know what happens because they're not in love with you. I thank you for that. That was beautiful. That was really the expectation unfulfilled and the making mistakes, which I think is the idea that you said. This empowers you in marriage, these abilities. So wonderful, Maura, you just returned from a whirlwind tour of Europe. I mean, you were away for 6 months. It was wonderful. And I don't know how long were you gone?
We were gone for a month.
Oh, okay. So was it a full month? Was it 30 days? Really?
Some of the time we're actually up in New Jersey on either side of this trip, which is why we were driving home.
Well, I
Because
guess
we
New
flew out of
Jersey.
Philly, but we were gone
Yeah.
for over a month.
Okay, but New Jersey is as close to Europe as you're going to get if you're living in Florida. Actually, it's funny because from Florida to New Jersey is about what, 1,200 miles? Is that
Yes,
far?
very good, very good.
Okay,
There
and
it is.
from New Jersey to UK, did you fly to London? Where did you
We
fly?
did, but we spent our time in Spain and Portugal.
Okay, but flying to London is only about 1,500 miles from New
You're right,
Jersey.
you're right.
So it's it's just a little, you had to paddle the last 300 miles in the boat. Okay, and you went to Portugal. And you saw the cork trees, and you drank your Madeira, and you had a wonderful time. So here, you're just back. You and Jimmy have been together more than 40 years.
Since 1977, we met in college, and we're now married 42 years. Yeah.
So it's once you passed, I think 8 years in America these days, you get a medal. But
I think you're right.
by the way, I did look it up, just to be. I don't know how accurate these things are, but I'm just telling you. I did look up what percentages of marriages end in divorce within the first 7 years, and it was a heavy percentage. It wasn't 20%. It was higher. And I think that there's something to that first 7 years, interesting enough, seems to be a hurdle. Now, I remember there was a famous movie called The 7-Year Itch, and there was a book written about it and that kind of thing. And I think it may be endemic to the human personality, by the way, that there's something about a 7-year cycle. We have it in the Bible. I mean, the Bible is rooted, interestingly enough, in a 7-year cycle, much like a 7-day cycle. And let's be blunt, for women, there is a series of 4 sevens, a 28-day cycle. It's just, these are human responses, and that there's some sort of a need to make sure that you as a being are growing, because as Diane said, things change. It's the natural process of life, change. Isn't it wonderful? Okay, so you and Jimmy now go away for a month. What's it like to travel with your spouse after being married for so long? I say that, so long. Traveling with your spouse, because travel involves the following. You're going to have delays on a flight. You may have a blowout in a tire on a freeway. The hotel has bed bugs, or this place you're supposed to go to, this thing happened and that thing happened. And without bickering and causing dissension and finding it to be an uplifting, enjoyable, memorable experience. How does that happen?
And I don't get the same question Diane got. I was all prepared.
No, you're not getting the same question. That's why I'm doing this.
Answer.
By the way, it fits in the similar question category, because it's asking, what is it about marriage with joy? It's about growth. So how do you be with somebody for a month and be married for 40 plus years and make it so that it's the kind of trip that, wow, this is wonderful?
It's a different question. I'm happy to answer it. I want to open up with this one thought that came flooding back as I was listening to you pose the question originally to Diane. My husband and I got married when we were 23 years old, which today sounds really young. But I had my best friend, who was also my maid of honor, said to me that summer, a few days prior, she said, "Maura, why are you getting married?" As if getting married would reduce her life. Now, have you ever heard yourself come up with a spontaneous remark or response, and you don't even know where it came from, and it bypasses your mind, but it comes out of your soul. I was reminded of this today as you were giving your preview monologue. I said to her, Lori, I'm getting married to start a new life. And it just came back to me as you were speaking. Barry, now it perfectly dovetails with this travel. When I grew up, my family didn't go anywhere. I didn't realize it, but my mother was agoraphobic. And we did always the same things. And I used to always joke saying, I can't even get out the front door. It's locked. So I met my husband when we were in college, and I took one look at him and we were speaking, and I thought, this is a man that has the world in his back pocket. He wants to travel. He wants to see new cultures, and it's very easy for him. It was something in my heart. And you want to talk about values that I knew from early childhood. I wanted to get out and meet the world. So here we are now, 42, 47.
Yes, you met in 77, you said. 76.
Right now. So it's now like 46 years or so. So we have maybe I've traveled 65 countries. He's been to 70 countries. He's introduced our daughter to the same thing. We are both growing in our own ways, but that's one of the things that unites us. It helps us grow individually when we travel, but also together. Now, this trip, I said to my husband on the way back from the 20-odd hour trip from New Jersey, I said, Jimmy, I have to tell you, this trip did so much for my soul. We were with so many different people because we were with family and friends in New Jersey on either side. We were in Portugal with a whole group of people, a number of who had been married like we had for decades, which was so refreshing. And they were fun people from different parts of the country and the world. And then we had our own time when we were traveling through Spain, where we were in very hot places, hotels that for whatever reason were 300 years old and didn't have air conditioning. We actually, when you said sleeping on the floor, we had to change airports in the UK. We flew into one airport, then we had to take a bus, then we arrived at the other airport in London, and everything was closed. Would you believe, here we are, 65 years old? There was nowhere to go. I said, well, Jimmy, I guess we're going to sleep on the floor. We both took our backpacks, laid back. We're on the floor for a couple of hours. And I laughed. I said, do you realize it's like we're 23 and 25 again?
Absolutely.
For us, I will say this. We have been through so much over the years. We have changed much. We've grown much. We've been through challenges, health challenges, all kinds of things. But you know what? There is a dynamic that comes from staying together, growing together, encouraging each other to grow, because trust me, I was not the kind of person that would be sleeping on the floor, sleeping in trains, sleeping in overnight buses. And I will tell you, I love it. I'm happy to come home to our very nice home, but I love the dynamism, the personal growth, the chance to get out, meet new people, see new cultures, do new things. The dynamism in our being together and pursuing those kinds of things we like has actually kept us very much alive. And I came up with one other word as you were querying Diane. As a couple and as a growing couple, we actually create our own unique fragrances. And those fragrances come from being individually who we are and as a couple who we are. There were people over in Europe that said, you two, I have never met anybody like you two. Well, that's how it should be with every couple. I've never met anybody else like you. Why? Because you bring two unique people together. You find things you love. You cause each other to be challenged and also to grow individually and together. And as a unit, and then later as a family, you actually walk out in life and you have your own fragrance that others can be attracted to, maybe glean from, but also be inspired to establish their own growing life, growing marriage, growing family through the things that they like and living through their own values.
I love this idea of fragrance, aroma. Some would call it an odor. What do you know? Look, you said you come from an Italian household. So I think I made mention before, we lived in a 3-story house, and we were on the first floor, and above us was this wonderful widow, but her family of 7 kids were always there, and they weren't little kids. By the time when we met them, they were big kids, made a lot of noise, and they loved to eat and cook and such like that. And the 3rd floor was another one of her relatives. So there was always fragrances going around. But I love this idea of the intimacy that has grown with the two of you over the decades that creates your own fragrance, which is attractive. We could call it eau de mora. It's so beautiful. And by the way, especially interesting enough that you mentioned to be in, let's say, Spain, and to be in a hotel that's 300 years young, but doesn't have the amenities that we're used to, such as air conditioning, and especially in the summertime. And it was in southern Spain, it gets a little bit hot. So, it's something, we'll even call it uncomfortable. But it's part of the wonderful romance of the road. That's what I call it. There was a great book that I was privy to when I was in my 60s. In the 60s, when I was a kid roaming around the world, especially in the United States of America, I hitchhiked across the United States a couple of times and did travel tens of thousands of miles by hitchhiking. But in those days, you could actually do such things. I mean, I wouldn't even think of it today, but leave that aside. But the name of the book was called Dharma Bums. Are you familiar with the book? Jack Kerouac, Dharma Bums. Okay, anyway, it's just, Dharma is the other word of like karma. And it's so much fun to be on the road, especially on the road with somebody that you love. I mean, I hitchhiked with people that I knew and liked and such, and, sometimes alone, but that experience of being with the person that it's not just that you've known the person for 40 plus years. You're one being. That's what I think part of what Diane was alluding to, with the ability to make mistakes. You become one being. There's no this finger here and this finger here, and they end up touching. No, it just extends. You can be anywhere in the world, and you're always together. Wonderful, Lori. I'm not even sure what the questions I'm going to ask anymore, but
I'm morphing around.
Okay. We're not going to talk about the coming for our kids, but
I just want to make a comment first before you ask me a question.
Yes, please.
About that travel thing. I fantasize to go away for a month with my husband because I know when we get out of the stuff here, this is stuff.
Yes.
And when you get out of this stuff and you leave it all behind and you walk out of your house with not even your cell phone, all you have is each other. And it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I remember you. Where have you been? Because at home, everyone's there's so much to do and there's so much stress. And, I know people that are like, I have like 5 shows to watch already. I can't add another one. What? I just told them about a new show I was watching and they panicked that I was adding more to their list. It's like, that's supposed to be enjoyable. You don't have to watch TV, but it's stressing people out because there's so many choices. And it's like, our world is getting so crazy that I believe people should be taking a weekend, if they can pull it off, once every 4 weeks, once every 6 weeks, at least every quarter. Get out of the house with your kids, without your kids. It doesn't matter. Just leave everything behind, drop everything and walk out the door. Because then you're like, where are we going? Even if it's down the street to another hotel and don't go home for 3 days, it's so refreshing. And to go away for a month like she did, you can go back to being 18 again because you got so much time.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, what's your question?
And by the way, and that point of removing the cell phone, even if it's physically with you, but it's locked away someplace, but you're not going to do it. By the way, I commented recently on a post that a friend of mine had posted, who he was talking about the new world of how people are consuming TV. And this is a very well-known person. I mean, 12 million followers. And he's talking about new ways of looking at TV with this and that. And that. And I sent a little note saying, laugh out loud. Why is anybody willing to invest their most valuable asset, i.e. their time, in watching TV? Now, I say that, I'm looking at Diane. For Michael, he has to do it sort of because that's his profession. But if he didn't have to, he wouldn't probably do it. You know, it used to be that they didn't have a television in the house. I don't know if you still don't. Okay, good.
No TV.
We don't have a TV. But the point that people actually, we won't call it TV anymore because it's really their phone, that little thing. Okay, some people, it's funny. We have this little thing called the phone. Well, it's not a phone. This device, which is rather small, but almost all homes have this thing that is 72 inches, which is 6 feet. Think about it. It's not 72 inches. It's 6 feet. You know, this screen is 6 feet, and people do consume hours of it, either in the course of a day or certainly in the course of a week. And like you said, Lori, I love that. I already have 5 shows I need to watch. You hear that? I need to watch those 5 shows. I mean, I'm committed to watching this series. It's a television show.
Okay, so Barry, what's your question? Give me an easy one.
Oh, let me have a question. Thank you. Yeah, get off this.
Easy question.
So the question for you is, let's talk about growth in marriage, because growth, we're saying, is the bedrock of experiencing marriage with joy. How do you see a couple growing? In other words, is it a natural process? Does one spouse or both need to make time to sort of remind the other one about what are we doing and what do you need? What can I do to help you, et cetera, et cetera? Because that's not organic. No offense. That's not normal. Normal is we just do what we do. We bump into each other, sometimes big elbows, sometimes soft elbows, but not normal is the real method of growth, I think, of let's talk to each other. What am I not doing for you? What do you need from me? So how do you see couples growing in marriage?
So that's a big one for me. And that's something I talk about every day with people, because something kind of is growing, and someone shifts, right? Let's say someone starts to grow this way, some curiosity or something they're shifting into. Maybe they like baseball now and they're going to go join a baseball team. And the other person gets threatened and goes into fear mode. And the other person's like, but I just want to do this. And so it's understanding and accepting and letting the other person be free to explore and experience and grow in their own skin, and not being afraid of them growing themselves. Because I think when someone wants to go to, get another degree or go become a doctor, it's suddenly like, oh, things are going to change and you're going to leave me. Or what's going to happen if you get that? Who are you going to meet? It's all fear-based. But what happens is if someone can accept it, scooch back a little bit and give that person a good job, I hope you win, which sometimes is hard for people because there's a lot of fear. But if that one person grows, the other person has no choice but to grow along. If they resist it and say, I don't like it, this isn't making me comfortable, I don't want you to do that, the other person's like, they're either going to go, screw you, I'm going to do this anyway, or, okay, I'll change and stay down here. But either way, if they change and get down here, someone's going to get resentful. It's allowing people to be free to express themselves. I work with people in midlife. So a husband could come to the wife and say, I've always wanted to live in Alaska. And he's just thinking out loud because she's his partner and they have a relationship. And the wife's like, Alaska? How would we move our things out there? We can't live out there. The kids are out here. She just squished his dream. And now he's mad at her. He doesn't want to move to Alaska. He's just thinking. He's exploring his age and figuring out what he wants to do. And if she goes, no, he's not going to be so happy. And he's going to think she's his problem because she doesn't want to do anything. There was a great movie, I think it was called The Founder, about the McDonald's people. And the character who was the McDonald's guy, I forget his name, Ray Kroc, he's trying to do something. And his wife's like, I don't think so. Well, he goes off and meets some other lady who's married to someone else. Terrible thing. But she's like, oh, I love your ideas. Oh, this is great. Of course, she has no ties to his future financial state. But she's not threatened, where the wife at home is terrified. And it's like when you're with somebody, you have to trust your spouse enough that whatever they think they're going to drag you into, it's not. If someone comes home and says, I think I'm going to become an acrobat and join Circus du Soleil and quit my job, that's not happening tomorrow. They got to go take a course on how to bend, maybe start yoga. It's going to be years. And they're 60. Really? You really think it's going to happen? But if you're going to go, yeah, it's not going to happen, it's going to all fall apart. The idea is to go encourage, encourage, encourage. Have no fear. Because wherever you guys are going to go, you're going to go together. It's when someone goes, no, I don't like it, that the rip starts. And they start to separate and grow apart, because this one's going to grow and take yoga secretly and never tell her, even though it becomes the divider. And the idea is leave your partner alone. Just let everyone be who they are and love them anyway. That's my thought. That's how we grow.
Let's unpack some of the things here, because it's really wonderful. And I must tell you, because I'm the one who takes notes and finds there's an intersection here of all three of you that's so wonderful, because you're all saying similar things from different places. I love this idea, by the way, Lori, of what you said. Well, I'm thinking of moving to Alaska. And all of a sudden, the other partner, whichever one it was, puts up a wall and said, right. And yeah, let's go to what Diane said. The genius of a marriage, of growth in marriage, is you can make mistakes. Okay. So let's say, take your example. He says it and she's thinking, what an idiot. Okay, fine, but I'll humor him. Yeah, you know something, Alaska, I heard they have some big bear up there. Oh, these moose. You know how big those moose are? And as opposed to, like you just said right away, creating a negativity. So one of the things that Lori has taught me over the interviewing years we've been doing these things together is this wonderful idea from the improv, yes, and, as opposed to yes, but.
No, as opposed to no.
Well, forget even no. We don't go with no.
No.
But, yeah, no, yeah. But by the way, notice that you don't say no with a smile. No, people don't do that. They're no. The genius here, though, is that change scares people.
It does.
It creates a fear. One of the things that Diane mentioned in the beginning is that the ability to understand the essence of life, these things are changing, right? And the beauty, the artistry, the fragrance of a spouse is that change is not something to be afraid of. It's like saying, you know, I'm going to go surfing, but I don't want to have any waves. Duh. I'm going to sit on a board in a calm lake and think that I'm surfing. No, you can't surf unless you have a wave, right? You want to ride the wave and not just get hit by it, but you know you're going to fall off, and say, well, that's part of the process, isn't it? And especially in midlife. Now, midlife obviously is an interesting number, because some people, midlife is 40 because they think they're only going to live to 80. For me, midlife is 100. So I'm going to be 200 and full of good health. But leave that aside. But usually, let's say today should be the age of 60. You would think that if somebody gets to the age of 60, that they would get into the world of trust and encouragement and offering opportunity and to the other person saying, well, that's interesting. Tell me more. That's all you have to do, right? You know, if you said, tell me more, what is that about? Wow, the person can just go off on this dream tangent. And wouldn't that be nice? Aren't dreams wonderful? To me, by the way, personally, I think dreams is one of the greatest parts of being married. Because I'm saying it with full love to my wife, I can dream and it can be safe. Because I can tell her things that are crazy and tell her this dream that I have and say, okay, well, fine, that's interesting. Tell me more. She does that sometimes. Sometimes she doesn't. But when she does, that really feels good. That's nice. That's the ability to make mistakes, to be in a place that is not overburdened with all the stuff that's around you, right? To be able to get on the road and be someplace for a month, and not just someplace, places, even if it's New Jersey, or even, even if it's, getting a flat tire on a super highway and breaking down and just getting into the house a minute before we're supposed to start. It's all about process and fun, which is the essence of what we do here, Marriage with Joy. So I am sorry to tell you the following news. We're at our time at the moment for today, but we have much more to do. And as I said, thank God, thousands and thousands of people love this show. And I want to tell you personally, each one of you, Diane and Maura and Lori, how much I appreciate your time, your energy, your thoughts, and so do other people. I mean, I'll have to show you someday. We'll send you maybe some emails that, Diane said this. Oh, Maura had a good point. Lori, she's so interesting. They don't say anything nice about me, but that's okay. That I just want to let you know that you are thought of, you're loved, and it's really great. The next show that we do, though, will be about some interesting upheavals in the situation of kids and trans, and I mean transition and transformation, not the other stuff. And only, not even trans fats, but just all kinds of good things happening, because our show, as I said, this is the best hour in the entire world, on the entire internet, about marriage with joy, because there's nothing greater, and you're the ones who make it happen. So again, huge thank you. So as we do, of course, traditionally, we finish off with a big hug. And so I'm going to ask we do that as we move from what they call Pride Month into the real Pride Month. We will all meet together in July in a big Pride Month, and we'll give a hug and a blessing to everybody. So hug, of course, stands for heartfelt, unlimited giving, which is the essence of marriage, right? Heartfelt, unlimited giving. 1, 2, 3. And our blessing to everybody is go forth. Live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad. Go make a difference. Thank you.
Bye. Next month.
Welcome to Marriage with Joy, which is the most open discussion on the internet about the positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant aspects of living in harmony with matrimony. Marriage with Joy unabashedly discusses the most interesting questions raised by listeners. Our informed and informative panel addresses issues with thought, wit, and aplomb. Voted best of the web 2 years running.